Welcome to One on One with the Grim One. This is the black metal party that never stops. And you know, it's me, your host, the Slayer of Posers, Master of Disaster, the most electrifying man in corpse entertainment, the Necrosexual. And joining me on this most morbid of talks, we have one of the pioneers of the new wave of British heavy metal, Brian Tatler from Diamond Head. Hey, how the hell are you doing, Brian?
It's great to be here talking to you.
Let's jump right into it. You've re-recorded your landmark album, Lightning to the Nations, 40 years after it was first released. And let me ask you, Brian, did you ever think that 40 years later you'd still be playing and re-recording these songs?
No, not in the slightest. I had no real vision of what was coming in the future. No, I don't think anybody really realized that heavy metal was going to still be around 40 years later. So no, I was always thinking about the next gig or maybe the next album, but I didn't even have a clue that I was going to be in it for this long and still be playing these songs 40 years later. And of course, no idea of re-recording the debut album.
Let me ask you, did you ever have any idea that this album would go on to be such a cult classic?
Again, absolutely no idea. We were just trying to make the best record we could. It was only the second time we'd ever been in the studio, and we were given a week to record an album's worth of material and mix it. And so we just did that, and we hoped we could get a record deal. It turned out we didn't get a record deal with it, which is crazy, really, considering the hoo-ha and it's become such an important album. But we just, we printed 1,000 copies ourselves and sold them mail order and sold them at gigs. And it is quite amazing that it's gone on to have this kind of life and to be highly regarded. And we had no idea what we had. Probably we didn't even have any idea of how good the band was or how good we'd become as writers. We were always, aiming very, very high to be the best band in the world. But I think when you're 19, there's a naivety to everything you do, and we just had a sort of ambition and tried to make the best album we could.
Wow. What is it that makes Diamond Head special from your peers?
Excuse me, I don't know. I think we just had a sound, the four individuals and the influences that we all had and brought to the band made Diamond Head very original and is what gave us our sound and our style. I always think we'd grown up in the 70s listening to all these incredible bands, bands like your Black Sabbath, Zeppelin, Purple, etc., AC/DC, Rush, Van Halen. And then along came punk rock in 1977, and I was very influenced by that. It was great to see young bands appearing and making their own records and getting on the radio with John Peel and things like that. It took some of that energy, and I think it always worked live. If we got songs that had energy and speed, we were never going to be a band that played like ballads and slow songs. We just wanted to try and write some exciting music that would win over an audience that probably had never seen you before, and obviously didn't have any of your records because we hadn't made any records. So live was one of the goals to kind of win over an audience. And I think that's possibly why a lot of the songs had a lot of energy and were quite fast.
You could say those songs on the album are electric.
Hey!
Indeed. So take us back in time. You mentioned that you had no idea heavy metal would become such a thing when you guys were on the forefront of what would be known as the new wave of British heavy metal, even as the genre of heavy metal was still being forged and engineered in the furnace. What was it like in those days when you were on the frontier?
Um, I, as I say, we've just grown up with all these great bands. We had Judas Priest as well from Birmingham, and so I'd go and watch all these bands as they came through Birmingham, and it would all be rubbing off and inspiring uh, Diamond Head to do more or to try and make something original, force us to try and join this club of great bands from the 70s. I just think we were all super massive music fans, and we just wanted to try and make a career, um, try and make a good album, try and do some gigs. We didn't think much beyond that, though. As I say, the 40-year thing, it never ever occurred to me that I'd still be doing this in 40 years' time. Uh, and that heavy metal would become so massive and take over the world, and every country seems to embrace heavy metal. Whereas when we started, it just seemed to be the UK. That was our entire horizon. There was no metal magazines. There was no metal radio. Uh, so the growth of heavy metal has become incredible, and I had no idea what was around the corner.
And one thing that was around the corner, and I'm curious to know what your first impression was when you first heard of these four young lads from San Francisco, a little old band called Metallica. What was that like hearing from them for the very first time?
The first thing I heard, obviously, I've met Lars in '81 when he came over to see Diamond Head. And he became a friend of the band, but he never said he was a drummer, or he never said, I've got this band or anything. He was just this super fan of new wave of British heavy metal bands. And then he wrote to me and said, "Yeah, I've got a band, blah, blah, blah." But I never thought, oh, that's amazing. He's just another of my friends who happened to be in a band. Little did I know what was coming. Then he sent over a cassette of Metallica recording. I think they did It's Electric, like a garage recording on a ghetto blaster. Then in 1984, they recorded Am I Evil? And I think he got in touch and asked for the lyrics. And then it was the B-side of the Creeping Death 12-inch single. So that's the first time I really properly heard Metallica. And I just thought it was a great, Creeping Death's a great track, of course, but it was really respectful the way they'd recorded Am I Evil, and they'd learnt it properly, and the lyrics and even the solo and every little bit. And it was a very respectful version.
If you're gonna pay homage to the masters, you better do it well and not disrespectful.
I agree. Well said.
And in those lyrics, in Am I Evil, there's that famous line, My mother was a witch. So I gotta ask you, what was your relationship like with your mom and dad growing up? Did they still think it's a phase you're going through?
Well, my relationship with my mum and dad was fantastic, but of course, I didn't write the lyrics. Sean wrote the lyrics. I wrote the music. So I don't know. I think his mother probably took offence because I don't think she was a witch, but it just worked. I remember hearing Sean say that when he heard the riff for Am I Evil, he just thought, I'm going to have to come up with a suitable lyric for that song, that riff. And so he obviously did, but channeled some dark forces somehow and came up with that very extreme lyric for the time.
And the rest is heavy metal history. So, Brian, we know that Diamond Head was certainly heavy metal heroes to Metallica, but I want to know, who were your rock and roll icons that really inspired you back in the day?
Okay, a lot of the big names, people like Richie Blackmore, Jimmy Page, Tony Iommi for as a riff master, and Michael Schenker is one of my all-time heroes. And of course, we've just lost one of my all-time heroes in the late great Edward Van Halen. But I bought a Flying V because of Michael Schenker. I went to see UFO in 1979 on the Obsession tour, and I just thought Michael Schenker looked so amazing with his blonde hair and his black outfit and a white Flying V. I thought I'm going to get one of them. I'm going to go and buy a white Flying V. And a lot of people have done exactly the same since, but it's still an amazing player. One of my all-time favorite lead guitarists, Michael Schenker.
Indeed, Michael Schenker and a Flying V. It's a recipe for an instant heavy metal hard-on.
Good call. That picture of me there was taken, I think, at Bangerhead in Germany, and that is my original Flying V that I've had for 41 years. It's that old. It's a bit fragile now. I don't take it everywhere. Like if we come over to the States, I normally bring a Les Paul because it will just get thrown on the plane, and it could easily break. It broke 5 times, that Flying V.
Wow.
The Les Pauls are really, really solid, but the V always felt a bit light, a bit fragile, and it slipped over and broke, and I've had it repaired, and it still works, but I am a bit careful about it now. I don't take it everywhere.
Yeah, take it out like a fine wine. Is that the same guitar you recorded Lightning to the Nations with?
Yes, it is. That's the only guitar I had at the time, so everything was done on that one guitar.
Wow. And of course, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just laughing, sorry.
Yeah. And of course, another famous rhythm guitarist rocking the white Flying V, James Hetfield. You can say that it definitely took a page or two out of your book.
I guess so. Probably myself and Schenker, he probably thought that's a cool image. Let's get one of them. And of course, the Explorer. He's quite famous for playing like a white Explorer, isn't he?
Indeed, yes. Classic guitars. And of course, you mentioned Eddie Van Halen, which was one of my questions, because on that album, Lightning to the Nations, of course, on the song Am I Evil? And throughout that record, there's a dazzling array of guitar work, a ton of Eddie Van Halen style tapping, the two-hand technique, which at that time, 1980, was still relatively new. So I wanted to ask you if that was any sort of influence on your guitar playing, because I certainly heard that same style virtuoso at the fretboard, but you guys took it in a way more riff-laden, progressive direction than any Van Halen song.
It was definitely a huge influence, Eddie's style. I heard Van Halen's first album when it came out in 1978. I was in a record shop and they played Eruption, and I just thought, good grief, oh, I'm in trouble here. There's a new kid on the block. And so I bought the album, and I couldn't work it out how he was getting that sound and the technique involved in playing a song like Ain't Talking About Love blew me away. So I eventually worked out the tapping idea, and I put it straight away into Am I Evil? Am I Evil was written in 1979. So as soon as I'd learned the idea, I thought, right, that's going in. And that went in at the beginning. And yeah, it's from Eddie. I mean, Eddie didn't invent tapping. I don't know who invented it. I know Steve Hackett from Genesis used to do tapping in like 72, but yeah. Eddie took it into a completely new place, and just genius.
You could say he's like a modern day Amadeus Mozart.
yeah. I think after Hendrix, he's the biggest, the most influential guitarist of all time.
And definitely for virtuoso playing.
Yeah.
And that's one of my questions with Diamond Head, because you can certainly hear the influence it would have on Metallica and Megadeth and many other bands in the years to come. But you took the riff game in terms of your song structures. They had very catchy songs, but then you also threw out riff after riff and a lot more progressive than many of your peers at the time. So where did that all come from?
I think the riffs idea was, a lot of it was Black Sabbath. We noticed on their albums, they would go from one riff to another, and almost for, well, I suppose it was for fun, but they would get to a section and then it would just go into a completely new riff, and maybe even in a different tempo. And I think we just thought that that's a really great way to write a song, and it didn't matter if the song was 5 minutes long or 7 minutes long. Just get those riffs out there. So I was able to come up with a lot of good guitar riffs, and myself and Sean, as we wrote, we'd constantly be saying, "Put that riff in," and "I've got this riff today," and "Okay, well, put that in at the end." And we didn't try and write a verse chorus pop song. We were writing these big slabs of rock and metal that ended up being like 7.5 minutes long, or Sucking My Love is 9.5 minutes long. I think we just didn't want to be tamed or constrained by the idea of having a hit single or anything like that, or making short, catchy choruses. We wanted to write the greatest song of all time, the greatest rock classic of all time, in a way. I beat War Pigs or Symptom of the Universe or Dazed and Confused.
Indeed. Sucking My Love for 9 minutes. It's a whole lot of length right there.
No,
But you definitely wrote one of the greatest new wave of British heavy metal, or just heavy metal albums of all times for its time. And 40 years later, you have this new re-release. So tell me about version 2.0. How was that, bringing these songs back to life after all these years?
Well, it was great fun because we've been playing these songs live, obviously, for years and years. So it was just a case of, let's record them now with this lineup. We know it's a good band. Raz is a great singer, so it was a case of, once we made the decision last year, we thought it's going to mark the 40th anniversary. It's a good celebration. It's a good way to do something. And then the fact that lockdown happened in March, before we'd even finished the recording, in March we'd only got the drums and guitars down, and then it was left that we did the bass player recorded at home and then sent the bass in to Raz by WeTransfer. Then Raz recorded all the vocals and mixed the album at home, and we got it ready for the end of July. But it was really good fun. The only rehearsals we had to do really were for the covers, which we did around December, January, and then that was it. We had gigs at the beginning of the new year, but once lockdown happened, we just wanted to get the record finished and get it out this year, and at least then it's something that the Diamond Heads created and made for 2020 that we hope people are going to like.
Indeed, and doing anything creative in a year as turbulent as this one is certainly a high accomplishment.
Yes. I think a lot of bands, haven't had the opportunity to get together, even though they've got all this free time. They're probably, we're not allowed to be in the same room at the moment, aren't we? We can't rehearse or anything. So I'm really glad that we were able to get this done. It was thank goodness that we could get it made and get it out.
One of the songs that you covered on the bonus tracks of this new album, you returned the favor to Metallica and did your own rendition of one of my favorite Metallica songs, No Remorse. Tell me about how that came to be.
Yeah, I wanted to do a Metallica song all along. I said we should do some bonus tracks, and I wanted to do a Metallica song, and I thought we'll do a track off the debut album, Kill 'Em All, because Metallica only covered songs off Diamond Head's debut album, so it felt like the right thing to do. And I like No Remorse. I'm a fan of that track, and I just thought it's not a famous one. It's not like Seek and Destroy is much more famous, but I thought let's everybody learn No Remorse, and let's get in rehearsal and see how it goes. And straight away, it sounded really good. There's something in the writing that that had a Diamond Head quality to it. So it just really fitted and suited us as a band. And of the 4 covers we did, that one came together and sounded the best, quickest. So we all really, got off on No Remorse. It sounded great.
Indeed, and I also agree. Kill 'Em All. My favorite songs on that album were all the deep cut, just the B-sides. And it's especially funny to hear Metallica on those first 2 albums because I totally hear the Diamond Head influence with the vocals. They certainly learned a few tricks from the masters.
Well, it's great that we were influential. It's given us a much longer career, I feel, than if they hadn't covered Diamond Head, or if they had started covering. They could have covered. There's thousands of bands they could have covered, isn't there? They never covered any Angel Witch songs or Tank songs. There were Tigers of Pantang songs. We were lucky that they chose the Diamond Head songs.
My first introduction of Diamond Head was watching Metallica's live shit VHS tape and CD when they came out.
Yes.
And the rest is history. But I do have to ask one question for the old school fans. Do you stay in touch with your former bandmate, Mr. Harris, anymore?
Not really. Even though he only lives about a mile away, we don't really see each other anymore. I have seen him in town shopping. I see the other 2 guys, Colin and Duncan, quite a bit, the drummer and bass player. And we go for a curry together several times a year. And I go and visit Duncan on a Sunday afternoon very often. But somehow Sean and I have kind of parted ways. And he never calls me, I never call him. It is a shame because we went through a lot together, and he's one of my oldest friends. But it just seems to be, I'm doing Diamond Head, and I don't think he likes it. And I don't know what Sean's doing. He's probably, all I know is he keeps writing songs, and he don't release any or whatever. But it is a bit of a shame the way it's gone.
Indeed. Well, the music lives on 40 years later, still delivering the lightning to the nations. And Mr. Brian Tatler, I want to say thank you for going one-on-one with the Grim One. What do you want to say to all the Diamond Head maniacs listening around the world?
Just, if you like Diamond Head, then I like you. Diamond Head's been my baby for 44 years. I've always tried to look after it and keep it going, and I do a lot of background stuff to try and make it happen, as does our drummer Carl. And if possible, we will get on the road and get to see places and meet the fans, and it's always good fun. We have a lot of good times being in Diamond Head since whenever. But just stay with us. Check out the website, check out the media, and if we can get back on the road, we've got definite gigs booked for April. So fingers crossed, everything will start getting back to normal next year, and we can continue where we left off.
Indeed. And listen, bang your head to the new old Diamond Head album, the 40-year re-recording of their landmark record, Lightning to the Nations. And this has been another transmission from the dark side with your host, the Necrosexual. And thank you, Brian Tatler, for your time. Keep rocking all night long.
Thank you, Jim.